Welcome to the latest edition of Etihad Cargo Connections. I'm your host, Rowan Anderson, and today I'm joined by CEO of WinStar Farm, Elliot Walden. Thank you for joining us this morning, Elliot. How are we?
Good, Rowan, doing well.
Excellent. So we'll just chat today about your role at WinStar Farm, as well as a few other bits and pieces about the journey that's brought you to where you are now.
Sure.
Excellent. So you were born in Kentucky, in Lexington, real epicenter of horse country, as everyone knows around the world. Tell us a little bit about your childhood and how it was growing up, in such a horse-rich area.
Well, I was fortunate to grow up on a farm. My dad was a commercial breeder. I'm a third generation horseman, along with my brother Ben, who started Vinery Farm. We grew up with 4 stallions, about 30 broodmares and 300 acres. And I thought the farm life was a little slow. So I kind of gravitated towards the racetrack and the action of the track. It fascinated me. I knew early on that I wanted to be a horse trainer, and started working towards that goal when I was 12 or 13. We started prepping yearlings, and then I started working on the racetrack when I was 15.
I can relate to that. I worked in corporate sales for a decade, and then I just wanted to pursue sports journalism. So I went to uni, and just nothing beats, like you said, the horse track and the sport of kings, So I can completely relate to that. And you mentioned you were born into such a, rich racing family. As a kid, you went through all the parts, the dirty parts, we can say, cleaning stalls, washing horses, riding out when you were younger. Tell us a little bit about, and you mentioned what your dad did in terms of broodmares and everything else. Tell us how much of an influence that was on you wanting to work in the industry. Because I talk to many trainers who, a lot of them are from rich racing families, but some would rather do something else, but then they come back. So it's like all paths lead back to home kind of thing. So how much of an influence did it have on you wanting to be part of the industry?
It was everything. I did end up going to boarding school in Virginia for my high school, and I just every day was thinking about getting back to Kentucky, and would call my parents wanting to leave and come back to the farm and come back to the racing, and because I was in Virginia where I was completely absent of it. So I knew early on what I wanted to do. Fascinated by the business, fascinated by the horse. The connection with all kinds. We had all. We had broodmares to stallions to racehorses. The whole thing fascinated me. But I ended up kind of gravitating towards the racetrack.
And you worked as an assistant trainer to people, of the caliber of Leroy Joly and, the great John Gosden before taking out your trainer's license in 1985. And at which point you trained 4 horses for your dad. At what point, as you said, when you were in Virginia, you knew you were going to always end up back in the industry. At what point was it you realized you wanted to take that step in terms of going out on your own and getting your training license?
Well, I knew that when I was 14.
Yeah.
And I just, every day, my goal was to try to learn something new, whether it be one thing, and just try to learn that one thing that would help me towards that goal.
Yeah. And working with people, as I said, Leroy Joly and, John Gosden, what was that experience like as a young guy wanting to get into the industry?
It's fascinating. I worked for Leroy Joly in the late 70s, and he had Genuine Risk, won the Kentucky Derby as a filly in 1981. He had General Assembly in 1979, Honest Pleasure, Foolish Pleasure. It was amazing to be around those good horses. And John Gosden, the same thing. I walked into his barn in 1984, and he had just won the Breeders' Cup with Royal Heroine. He had a horse named the Noble Player. He had so many great horses. He was really rolling in California at the time. It was a great time to be part of his organization. And John Ferguson was there as an assistant. Ian Jory, who ended up training Best Pal. Rick Matee. You can just go on and on about the talent that John had around him, and not only in horse flesh, but in people as well.
And I mean, just talking about John, the great John Gosden as well, he won a Neon Cup last week. So the fact that he's still going on at that, level in a completely different echelon of training would bode well in terms of the experience and knowledge you would have gained under him as well.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it was great. And in fact, it was my last job before I started training.
Yeah. And in 1998, you prepared Victory Gallop to win the Belmont Stakes, which is obviously a part of the Triple Crown. The following year, he was voted American champion older male horse. What was he like as a horse, as well as what did he mean to your career?
Amazing. He meant everything.
Yeah.
He was probably about a book 4 yearling at Keeneland. Not thought of well. He was a $25,000 yearling. He was not very big. He was a little back in the knee. He is back in the knee. A little bit of a short, thick neck on him. You wouldn't be impressed by him until he stepped on the racetrack. And when he stepped on the racetrack, he looked like he grew a hand, and his stride was immense. And that's what made him a great horse. That and his demeanor. Very rarely would I see a horse as consistent as he was. Even on race day, he would, when he knew that when the water bucket was pulled and he would recognize that it was race day, he would immediately lay down for a nap. I mean, it happened every time he ran. And he was just extremely smart, incredible to be around. And he made me. He and, distorted humor and Menifee, trainers are only as good as their horses. And I was fortunate enough to have some great ones.
And being someone that's been involved in the industry for so long, it wouldn't be a new thing, like from what I've heard, where, as you said, a horse that doesn't impress and is either passed over at sale and then goes on to be, a Winx or, that's an example off the top of my head, a freak, a champion, and just something else.
Yeah. And, I think most of the time the market gets it wrong.
Yeah.
That there's something about a horse, an innate ability that you can't put your finger on, that even the best of judges can't see sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's what makes our game so fascinating. That's what makes it so challenging. That's what makes us get up in the morning to try to keep pursuing, to let those horses speak to us in a way that says, I'm the next Winx, I'm the next Victory Gallop, I'm the next champion.
And outside of Victory Gallop and what he brought your career, what are some other highlights and some other names, great names that really helped with your success in the training side of things?
In the training side of things, I mentioned Menifee, who was second in the Kentucky Derby the following year. He won the Bluegrass. I also trained a filly named Ipi Tombi, which I had her for a very short time, but she was from South Africa. Gary Player bred her. She won the Golden Shaheen, or she won the $5 million race, the turf race.
Yeah.
I can't think what its name is, but she was a phenomenal horse. And she ran one time for us. She got hurt. She won, and she was phenomenal. So been blessed with a lot of horses that could run. Won a few titles at Churchill Downs and Keeneland as a trainer, and spent a lot of time in Kentucky. Been blessed with that. Was able to be around Wayne Lucas in his heyday, see him and see the great horses he had. See Bob Baffert on the way up. Bob was had Real Quiet that ran against Victory Gallop, and a lot of people say that I cost him a Triple Crown when we won the Belmont, but he cost me a Triple Crown because if he wasn't there, we would have won the Derby and the Preakness as well. Yeah. We were second in both. So we had some great times and was able to see a lot of great horses.
And before we speak about, your role now and your connection with WinStar Farm, it must mean something else to have, as you said, have so much success at home, in Kentucky, right?
It does. Yeah. It does. There's nothing like the Kentucky Derby and finishing second in that twice as a trainer was tough to get beat a neck both times. But I left it to God and realized that that's the way it was supposed to happen. So was blessed in my career with WinStar to have Super Saver win the Kentucky Derby in 2010 and do that for the Trout family and the Kasner family, and then Justify comes along in 2018. It's just been an incredible ride.
And we'll talk about WinStar Farm. You took over training there in 2002. A year later, you were named Vice President of Racing and Bloodstock Services. How was it that you first got involved with WinStar, and what did it mean to you when you first got involved with WinStar?
Got involved in 98 when Victory Gallop was, actually 99 when Victory Gallop was an older horse and was as you mentioned earlier, older champion. Yeah. And I met Kenny Trout and Bill Kasner at that time. They were friends of the Preston brothers who owned Victory Gallop. They were all from Texas, had a relationship, and I met Kenny. Kenny came to Saratoga when he won the Whitney by a nostril, and was his last start actually. And Kenny loved. He had been in racing with Bill Kasner in the 70s. They had gotten out of it and we're getting back in it. Kenny started a company called Excel Communications, had sold it, wanted to do something, thought about buying an NBA basketball team, decided to, for our good fortune, he decided to go all in on a horse farm and in racing and breeding operation. And that's the gist of WinStar Farm. And here we are 23 years later, had an incredible success with his vision. He never says he's just unbelievable in the way that he sees things. He's lets you do your job. He trusts you completely, but he also is very involved in the fact that he wants to know what's going on. He's very passionate about it. He wants to succeed, and he helps drive us to the success we've had today.
And no, you've answered my next question. Whenever I see Mr. Trout, he seems so passionate about the game. And, it's not just, dollars to him. It's more than that. It's, every single horse, it's the business, and it's, the future of the sport.
And I would add in there, it's the 180 team members we have.
Yeah.
He's very involved with the families at WinStar.
Yeah.
Has an incredible amount of humility for a billionaire.
Yeah.
He and his wife Lisa and their children, Preston, Grant, and Savannah. They multiple times a year we'll have an event at the farm where they're just mingling with the team members, and that's important.
Yeah, most
definitely. That's important for the ultimate vision of trying to do things in a way that brings glory to God. That's in our vision, and it's also raise the best horses we possibly can and be the best farm in the world. Yeah. And for those guys that muck those stalls every day, when they see Kenny around, they know that what they're doing is important, because the guy at the top is there where he could be a multitude of places. He could be on a beach somewhere. He could be, but when he's driving that's right. But when he's driving that black Suburban around the farm once a week, they know that what they're doing is important. And we all do. And we want to do it to the best of our ability. And we have such a great team at WinStar Farm.
And just quickly, like, you're now the CEO of WinStar Farm, and the way I see you talk, the passion, you always, you in the past, 10, 15 minutes, you've brought in so many times the fact that it's not just yourself, it's not just Mr. Trout, it's, 180 team members. How important is it to you? And, I can see how passionate it is to yourself and how passionate you are in the role. How important is it to you to be connected with WinStar, as well as have that role and have that proud role of being CEO of WinStar Farm?
Well, it started when in like you said in 2002, and really Kenny was wanting to change directions in 2005, and it came to a point where that's when I decided to go back to the farm and help at the farm and give up my training career. That's how important it was to me to stay connected to WinStar Farm, because Kenny had decided that we would possibly move the horses to other trainers. We could hire great trainers and have the ability to come back to the farm and help run the farm. At that time, I was vice president. But it was so important for me to make that choice to come to the farm, because I was so committed to what the vision that Kenny had placed before us. And I just felt in my heart, even though at that time we hadn't had the success that we've had in the last 17 years. The first 5 years were a bit of a struggle. And, then Distorted Humor came along, and then Spikestown came along, and then Bluegrass Cat ran second in the Kentucky Derby in 2006. And then it started to click, and I think we've had 18 horses in the Kentucky Derby since 2006 and won it twice. And so, I could just see it in front of us. And it was so important to stay focused on the vision to see it through. And it's just a privilege and an honor to be working with the WinStar family. A lot of us have been there a long time, and to see the success we've had has been a real blessing. And we're not done yet.
Yeah, that's what we want to hear. And you have 4 children. Your son Will has showed his potential as having a strong future career in training. First winner with Dazzling Dominica last year. How important is it to you that he and the other children and the family get involved in the family business?
Well, we let them kind of decide their own way in that. And Will's the one he's the only one that's directly connected, and
Yeah.
he is starting out on a phenomenal training career. His story's been documented, and he's a tremendous horseman. I have a tremendous respect for his horsemanship. And we talk horses all the time. That's a great connection, and that's something that we share together. But the other children, Emily, I have twins, Emily and Mac, and Emily loves horses. She makes her day job is something else, but her passion and her heart is in the horse business. And so I wouldn't be surprised if she winds up in ownership or winds up in some form or fashion in the business. Mac has worked in the equine insurance business before. And so, we're all in and around it. It is a lifestyle. So, they grew up going to the races. They grew up being able to be traveled about the United States, having 2 schools to go to, one in Kentucky and then one in Florida in the wintertime. And they really have an appreciation for, the best way I could say it is they have an appreciation for the lifestyle of being a horseman. And they don't look at that as it was a hindrance. I mean, there's obviously a lot of time committed to it.
Yeah.
Rowan, it's 7 days a week. Yeah. I miss some things. Yeah. And miss some opportunities, but they don't ever see it that way. Yeah. And so from that standpoint, and when they talk about it all the time, how great their childhood was because of the opportunities to go to the races, to go different places, to go to Saratoga, go to Florida. And so, I know at that point that they're bought in, and whatever position they find in life, whether it's in the horse business or not in the horse business, as long as they're happy, I'm good with it.
Yeah, awesome. And I can't have a conversation with you without mentioning one of my favorite racehorses of all time, the son of Titleist, Country Grammar. Breaks his maiden in November 2019, goes on to win a Peter Pan Stakes. A year later, transferred to the great Bob Baffett, legendary Bob Baffett. Following 2 years leads us to now. He's won a Grade 1 Hollywood Cup Stakes, Grade 2 San Antonio Stakes, has run second in the past 2 editions of the world's most valuable race, only by small mark, 3/4 of a length this year, half a length last year. And then after last year's second running, goes out to Dubai, thumps him in the World Cup. And then now he's backing up, and hopefully with another World Cup win. I'm ready to bet the house on it. I'm a huge fan of the boy. He showed the crowds at Meydan what he has. He showed the crowds at Saudi what he has. He showed the crowds back home what he has. Firstly, how did you get involved with the great horse himself, and what has this ride with Country Grammar been like for yourself?
Well, Country Grammar is a horse that you truly appreciate, because how many horses do you know have not been worse than second in 10 starts in the last 3 years? Since 2020, he has been first or second in every start. It's incredible, and taking us to the highest places, like you said, taking us to the great races. The World Cup last year was phenomenal. And his courage, his will to win is evident every time he steps foot on the racetrack. Even the other day in Saudi, he's around the turn and it looks like he's not really going anywhere. And I think he's 5 wide, and he's trying to keep pace around the turn so he doesn't lose any ground. He's not really gaining any ground, but then when he comes into the stretch, he just kicks it into another gear and tries its tail off to get to the wire first. And you just have to appreciate a horse like that. We first came involved with him when we bought him at the January sale in 2021. Mr. Pampa, who was a great friend and a great client of the farm, had passed, had a sudden heart attack. And it was just a devastating loss to the industry. A tremendous man. He owned a piece of Big Brown back in the day as well. So anyway, we had the horse in our training center, and they were selling all his bloodstock. His family was not in the business, didn't want to carry it on, and so we bought him out of the dispersal. And the first move we made was to send him to Bob Baffert. And Bob has done an incredible job with him. He won the first grade 1 in the Hollywood Gold Cup. And then we started pointing towards the races in the desert, and felt like that the demanding tracks over there would suit his stamina gene that he has, and it's just been a phenomenal ride. And then once he had success last year, we started figuring out a way to point for it this year. We actually bypassed the Breeders' Cup. Flight Line had a little something to do with that, and felt like, why go there and get beat up if he's going to be second or third to Flight Line? Let's give him a break, and let's point for the 2 races in the Middle East.
And as you said, the finish on him, the turn of foot, that engine, I think I'd put it, he devoured ground this year, coming around into the straight. As you said, he didn't not look flat, but he looked like he didn't have much left. He proved everyone wrong, just devoured ground. He now preps to defend that World Cup title. I saw footage of him arriving in Dubai. Boy, does he look fresh, especially given the battle he put in last week in Saudi. How is he looking in your eyes, and what would it mean to the entire team to go to Dubai, especially after a repeat of, a second, as you said, and take another World Cup?
Oh, it'd be phenomenal. The other thing it would do is put him in the history books. He's already in the history books as I think maybe the 4th or 5th leading earner in U.S. history.
Yeah.
But it would put him at the top. He would be number 1. He would surpass Arrogate. I think he would even possibly surpass Winks in Australian dollars conversion. I think she's maybe not. I'm not sure about that. I knew if we won the Saudi Cup, he would have. But
Winks
with him being
I
second,
think 28 million. I think Winks is that. Yeah.
I thought it was 25, but is it 28?
Around that. Might be 25.
And then if you take the Australian conversion, that's about 21.
Yeah.
So he's at 15, I think, or 14.6, right? Anyway, it's incredible to even think about how consistent he's been and run at a high quality races for 3 years now. Chad Brown who trained me before, loved him. He called me right after I bought him, actually the next day, and I'd already talked to Bob and committed him to Bob. But he told me all about him and told me what a cool horse he was, and he is.
Historic. I think like you look at his runs and you just you realize what he's done, and it's just like insane. It's, as you said, it's up there with, you know, Arrogate and great horses like that. It's just insane. And after the World Cup, what does his program look like going forward?
For the Breeders' Cup and kind of get him a break and work back from that. Yeah. It's worked well to do that in the past, and so he'll probably run. You know, I think the Pacific Classic would probably be on his dance card at 1.25 miles out in Del Mar. He ran well there last year, finishing second. He obviously didn't touch Flightline, but he beat the rest of them. And you know, he's done well at Santa Anita. So the Breeders' Cup in the fall is on the docket, and we're excited about it. And then we'll see about stud plans after that.
And as you said, you know, and we spoke about it before, WinStar Farm, Justify takes the Triple Crown, Super Saver wins the Kentucky Derby, Creator 2016 Belmont Stakes. Some amazing horses. You know, now, as you said, Spitestown in the past, Country Grammar now. Who are some other great horses that WinStar Farm have, you know, in-house that fans and just racing pundits really keep an eye on going forward?
Well, we've gone through a bit of a transition, Rowan, because we had such great horses in the 2010s with Spitestown. Tisnow has always been a fan favorite. He still continues to get candy, he gets flowers, he gets, you know, he won the Breeders' Cup Classic back-to-back in 2000 and 2001. He's retired and having a big time in the stud barn. We're looking over Life is Good and Constitution and the young guys. And then we have Distorted Humor, who is also retired. He's 30. And just an amazing horse. Really got the farm started. You know, without him, I don't know if WinStar Farm would be here today. He had yearlings when Kenny and Bill bought the farm. In his first crop, he had Funnyside win the Kentucky Derby, and then his stallion career just took off. And I actually had the honor of training him. And so, you know, now we're on to Life is Good and excited about his stallion career. Constitution is a proven stallion that's getting ready to hopefully take it to the next level. He's gotten a great career started at his career. And then, you know, we've had just some really, really blessed with great horses. Drosselmeyer won the Breeders' Cup Classic in 2011. And you mentioned Creator and you know, we're just super excited about the opportunities that we have as a team, and think about all the great horses that we've been around. It's pretty incredible.
And we've spoken about the past, we've spoken about the present, and now we'll look to the future. If there was any race that you would love WinStar Farm name to be connected to in terms of a win, what race would that be, internationally or at home?
It's a great question. You know, we've won 4 Belmonts, won 2 Kentucky Derbies. We did win the Preakness with Justified to capture, you know, to catapult us to the Triple Crown. But I'd love to win another Preakness. It's a tough race to win because it's 2 weeks after the Derby, and the fact that we have only had one, that would be a race. But you know, it's hard to say because we've been blessed to win so many. I don't really have one that stands out that we haven't won, other than the Saudi Cup. We've tried hard there the last 2 years, and you know, we've won 3 World Cups. So you know, I just think that you know, a race like the Preakness or the Derby again never gets old.
Yeah. And just, I have to ask, because you just mentioned it, is there any possibility in our dreams that Country Grammar makes a 3rd tilt at the Saudi Cup?
I think we'll wait and get to the end of the year.
Yeah.
But odds are against. I think at age 7, things, you don't want to
push him too far.
We have so much respect for the horse that we don't want to overdo it. But I would never say never. I think we let him tell us and go from there.
Yeah. And just the last question. Thanks so much again for joining us today on Etihad Co Connections. But what does the future look like, not only for WinStar Farms, but for Elliot Walden?
Well, the future is bright, and we're really excited at WinStar about some of the 2-year-olds we have. I'm excited about the next generation coming in. Kenny is 70, in his mid 70s, and his children are getting to a point now where they're very involved in racing. Preston Trout, his oldest son, has helped start the Commonwealth Thoroughbreds, the microshare company that owns a piece of Country Grammar, and was ecstatic when he won the Dubai World Cup last year. And so to see the legacy kind of start to turn to the younger generation is exciting. And so I'm not old, but I'm not young, and we're building for the future. That means that we're looking to help Preston and the Trout family engage as well, and so WinStar Farm can continue to be the farm that it's always been.
Yeah, and for yourself,
I'm looking forward to finishing my career at WinStar, whenever that is, and excited to see my son's career take off. He's done a phenomenal job winning races at 24%. And everybody that I talk to, and some of that might be a dad thing because they always like to compliment your children, but I truly see the genuineness that people are starting to take notice of his talents. And so to see his career, we have 4 grandchildren by the end of the year. We have 2 now and 2 more on the way. So it's an exciting time of life with my wife, Rebecca, and we're just going to enjoy and work hard and try to make Kenny has the vision of a second Triple Crown. So we're going to fight for that and try to put us in the history books with Calumet.
That'd be amazing. Thanks so much once again, Elliot. It's been really great.
Thank you, Rowan. Thank you.
You have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.